How's everybody doing today? You're watching Slot Car Mayhem. I'm John, and this will be episode 3, part B of New to Carrera. And in this episode, we're going to take a look at the SmartRace app for Carrera. And it's a little bit different and much more functional than the Carrera race app. Of course, the SmartRace is not a free app, but then again, you get what you pay for, right? So let's break this thing down and let's take a look at SmartRace and see what we have. Okay, here we are at the main screen of the SmartRace, and this is the way it comes up as soon as you launch the app. I was able to connect to the control unit with no issue. And one thing, if you will notice, is this is set up to run in portrait mode, landscape mode exclusively. There is no portrait mode, but the system is designed to work in landscape mode, and it works a whole lot better. So especially if you're going to be broadcasting to a screen, which I'm doing in this case. So that's one big benefit. The other big benefit here is there is full synchronization between the start and stop button that you can see in the lower right hand corner of the screen and the start stop button on the control unit. Both of those are synchronized, and you can use either one and they'll both reflect and both behave just the way they need to. So that being said, let's go ahead and dive in and see what we have. We hit the hamburger button up on the top left. We'll go to the main menu, and this is very much like the Carrera, where you got to assign your cars and your drivers and your controllers and all that. So let's take a look at the cars, and if we go ahead and edit a car, you can look and see it's like the Carrera. You have the name of the car. In this case, I've got Ford Capri number 1, and a photograph of the car, which I get from the Carrera website. And here you can see you can also add in the scale, manufacturer, tires, a logo. If you want to show a logo on the screen, you can do that as well. And you can have its own unique sound that'll be broadcast when the car crosses the start-finish line. You can do all that. You can have it count the number of laps the car has driven, assign maintenance intervals, and all that kind of good stuff. Also, you got room to add any additional notes or comments you may need to add about a particular car. So you actually have the basis of a car library that you can build into the system if you so wish to. Let's save that. Okay, and we'll take a look at drivers. Drivers are very similar. Pick a driver, and you can do the same thing. Assign an image and the name. The name's a little bit different because you can go ahead and spell the name how you want to show up on the screen, and then you can have the spoken name, which is how it will be pronounced by the system. Now, you may have a name that will be difficult for the system to pronounce. It's just standard text-to-speech. So you can go ahead and phonetically change the spelling to make it pronounced correctly. And in this case, I've added a little bit more where it says Kohler in the number 1 Capri. And that's what the system will say whenever it's referencing me in this car. Like if I'm low on fuel, it could Kohler in the number 1 Capri is low on fuel, or Kohler in the number 1 Capri is in the pits. And when you have a full complement of drivers on the track, it makes it so much easier to keep track of what's going on. And also it brings the spectators in deeper into the whole event. So it's really a great little feature that you can add into here. Let's close that. Teams, you can assign teams, championships, tracks. You can go ahead and set your track up. And pretty much the same thing, give it a name, an image, the length of the track, and you can assign minimum, maximum lap times, pit stop deltas, all that kind of information. But close that down. Assignments, right here. This is where you assign a car and a driver. And it's as simple as picking a driver, or picking a controller. The one here on the left is your controller. So controller number 3 will be driven by Sharon Hebert, and we'll put her in the BMW. There's your assignment right there. It's very simple. You can do all those out of the race screen itself. That's one thing I do like, is they don't have to be in the race screen. Okay, I'm going to go back to the main screen for a moment. And if you notice up here on the top bar, you see the flashing red suspended. That's your track status, of course. But just to the left of it, you see the type of race, and it's free practice. Now, when you fire up the SmartRace system, fire up your Carrera control unit and your SmartRace system, This is exactly what it defaults to. So if you have the same people driving the same cars all the time, they can just come over, drop it on the track, and go. And it'll count laps, it'll track fuel. It's not going to do anything else because it's not a race. It's just, for people to come in, warm up, do their practice, do what they have to do, and get ready for the race event. So let's take a look at how the race screens kind of work. Go back to the main menu. One thing I do like about the SmartRace here is these settings remain consistent. So once you set them, they'll stay that way till you change them. So here I've got the track that I'm going to be using. Whether I want a lapped or a time race, in this case I'm going to use a lap. I'm going to go 60 laps. No penalty for speeding in the pit lane. And that's good enough for right now. The rest of these, the weather and damages, we'll get to here in a few minutes. And then you would just hit start race. Now if we look back on the top bar again, now under the type heading it says race. And then we have status is prepare. And I'll go ahead and let a few cars run around the track a little bit. And that way you can kind of hear and see what goes on. So let's get these set into here. And I'm not going to use that same car, but it doesn't really matter at this point. Okay, so I'll put a couple cars on the track. And we'll go ahead and we'll start a race. And I'll turn up the sound so you can hear some of it. And I'll try to talk through it the best I can. Okay, let me turn it down. One thing I want to show you here though, if we look at the bottom bar where we have the ESC, the start, and the penalty button, just to the left of that there's a little handprint. Just touch that little handprint, it turns yellow. Now the whole screen where this background is, where we have this start finish line, that whole picture is now the start stop button on your whole screen that you're using. In this case it's an Android phone. So it doesn't matter, you don't have to hit the little start stop button here, you can hit anywhere on the screen. The ESC button, if you want to pull a pace car out, you just hit that and that will pull the pace car out for you. Just a couple things there. Okay, let's go ahead and get this race started. Let me turn the sounds back up. Okay, and let's see what we got. Okay, now I'm going to pull into the pits. Go ahead and pause the race. There we go, I paused the race. And turn the sounds back down. Okay, that's how that kind of works. And also when the race is completed, I've got it set up to where the track will just stop dead. And I find that helps tremendously in avoiding accidents that tend to occur near the end of a race, where somebody will stop and try to get their car off the track and somebody runs into them or what have you, especially if you're doing fueling and somebody runs to the last second and all of a sudden they run out of fuel right after the race and somebody runs right into the back end of them. So I prefer to just kill the track dead once the winner's declared, and we just figure it out from there. Everybody seems to agree that that's the best way for us, and that's what we go with. Okay, so that pretty much is a quick roundup of the SmartRace, the way it works out of the box. Now, a couple of the things I want to show you are considerably different, and these are some of the available plugins that you can get for it. Let's take a look at some of those. I don't have all of them yet, but I'm going to be getting all of them. It's right here under the button marked add-ons. And what we have here is we can have simulated damages. In other words, if you take probably longer than you should on a lap time, it's going to calculate and say, hey, wait a minute, you took longer than you should. Maybe you had a problem, or maybe you deslotted. Maybe you suffered, quote, simulated damages. Therefore, it's going to require you to pull into the pits and get your damages repaired. That's pretty simple. Penalties is another one, and you can assign different penalties to different phases of the race. Weather, this one's really cool. This one here, what that does is that will simulate rain. You can assign the percentage, whether it's a 0% chance or a 20% chance or a 70% chance of rain. And sometimes during the race, rain will show up. It will announce that rain is coming, and then very shortly after, it will announce that it's now raining. Everybody will slow down, and what happens is you need to go into the pits and you need to get, quote, rain tires, and so it simulates tire changes too for weather conditions. Excellent plugin, and I can't wait to go ahead and experiment with this feature. I'm just waiting to implement some of these new things here, let everybody get used to what we have. We just made the change from HO, so this way everybody can start gradually getting used to them before I start throwing them in all at once in the race environments. Championship races, that's another thing that's a good plugin. You can start putting tournaments together, and they have, you know, practice and qualifying and all that. It does all the points, all the seeding, everything for you. So there's a lot of features inside the championships, and that's definitely worth a good look. And we're going to get to the last one here, and this is probably the greatest feature I've seen yet on an app for the Carrera, and this is the SmartRace Connect. And what this does is anybody with an Android or an iOS phone can get a free download of the SmartRace Connect app from their Play Store. And when you go to a race, this is the master unit here, you hit the SmartRace Connect and start your server, it's going to generate a QR code. All they have to do is launch their SmartRace Connect, scan this QR code. It's going to say, what controller are you? I'm controller number 3. You hit that button, boom. All of a sudden now, controller number 3 has a personal driver station. And this will show everything pertinent to their specific car, their race. You can do things like adjust brakes on the fly. You can flash your headlights in case you want to pass somebody or you're having a hard time trying to locate your particular car in a night race. You can go ahead and go that way. It'll show your fuel status, all that kind of stuff. And they also have a stop button. And that means that they can go ahead and they can pause the race at any time, like a standard track call feature. However, when somebody with a SmartRace Connect as a driver station pauses a race, the system will announce who stopped the race. So, very handy feature, and they're also not able to restart it. It has to be restarted from the master. So, excellent system. I really like this part. This is my favorite part, my favorite plugin right here, the SmartRace Connect. And that being said, also, you don't even have to look at the thing, because the thing is set up to vibrate. It'll vibrate the phone in very specific patterns based on what it's trying to tell you. It's trying to tell you, okay, you're low on fuel, or you did a new best lap. It has different vibration patterns. And we have a individual who comes over here from time to time and runs with us, and he's hearing impaired. And I got really excited to discover this feature here in the SmartRace Connect. And personally, he doesn't have a phone yet, but he's going to have one of my old ones, and he can use it for this. I think this is a phenomenal feature right here. Kudos to the guys who developed this program. This is a fabulous program. So that being said, that's a quick breakdown of the SmartRace. That's what I've opted for instead of the Carrera race app that I do use on occasion. And I always go right back to the SmartRace. It's a good system, it's solid, it works, and don't have any problems with it. It doesn't, no issues connecting, no issues with mislaps. So it's a good system, and I highly recommend that if you're going to be serious about this, and don't be afraid to spend. I think I paid $12 for it, and honestly, I would have paid 3 times as much. It's that good. So, okay, that being said, we'll just wrap this episode up short, and that is the SmartRace app. And if you guys got any questions, go ahead and hit me up, and stand by for episode 3, part C, and that's how do we get it from our phone to a big screen, and how do we make all that work together? So that'll be our next chapter. Okay, you guys have a great night, and we'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching.